3-minute bio PCR.
Alright, here we go. So, PCR is just in vitro replication, which means that we're doing the same reaction that you would do in your body where we copy DNA, but you're doing it inside of a tube. So, let's look at both processes and compare them really quickly. One of the first steps in vivo is that helicase would break the hydrogen bonds that hold DNAs together, to hold the DNA strands together. In vitro, we're not going to use an enzyme to do that. We're simply going to use temperature. So we're going to increase the temperature, the DNA strands are going to start to shake, and then the hydrogen bonds are going to break apart. The second thing that would happen in vivo is that the enzyme primase, that RNA polymerase, would put down an RNA primer. Well, because we're working in a tube, instead of using an enzyme, we're just going to call the good people at IDT DNA. They're going to make us DNA primers rather than RNA primers, and they're going to ship to us overnight. It costs $20. The next thing that would happen is that DNA polymerase would add new nucleotides to the 3' end of the primer. Well, that's going to be about the same, except for the fact that we're going to use an enzyme called TAC, which comes from an organism that lives in a hot spring, Thermus aquaticus. So this particular enzyme works at 90 degrees centigrade. So when we reheat that reaction at 90 degrees centigrade, I'm sorry, no, that's not right. 60 degrees centigrade. Okay. The next step in vivo would be that RNA would be replaced by DNA, but since we bought our primers from IDT DNA, they were made out of DNA to begin with. The next step would be that ligase would attach the replaced DNA. Again, since we have our DNA to start with, we didn't need to replace it. So what does this all look like? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take everything and put it in a tube. We're going to take our enzyme, genomic DNA, lots of it, primers, even more of those, and the building blocks of DNA, NTPs, and we're going to have a ton of those. We're going to add those with a little bit of salt, specifically magnesium. We're going to put those in a tube, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drop the temperature a little bit so that our primers stick to DNA. Then we're going to heat this thing up to activate our TAC. The TAC is going to build the new DNA. And that's going to keep happening until for about 1,000 base pairs, and then the polymerase will fall off. At that point, we're going to
3 minutes.
melt the DNA.
Okay.
Which means we're just going to heat this whole thing up again, the primers are going to fall off, and then the process is going to repeat itself. The limitation of PCR over in vivo replication is that in vivo you can copy 6 billion base pairs. In vitro or in the tube, you really, most times you can copy about 1,000. Okay? There's other videos on this, and I'll post them too, but good luck with this thing.